Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to the channel. And today I just wanted to talk a little bit on uh, mortality, death, and dealing with people that are dying and that have died that mean a lot to us. It's something I obviously deal with in my practice a lot, um, and it's something we're all going to have to deal with at some time, I would argue, and obviously none of us get out of here alive, right? So it's in store for all of us, and just how to make sense of that, because it's obviously a very challenging part of life when people that we love dearly and that we've shared so much with are taken away or dealing with a terminal illness. So, um, what I usually encourage people to do is, firstly, is to just explore their feelings around it, and not try to numb them, not try to subdue them, distract themselves, avoid the feelings that they're feeling. Go into it fully. I actually lost someone that was very dear to me yesterday, and it was actually one of my first clients, but we ended up working together later on in some capacity. So uh, I was incredibly proud of her, and saddened to hear the news. And for me, um, it was related to mental health as well, and some of the stuff she was having to deal with. So it's very difficult to hear that and make sense of it, especially when it's a young person, relatively young person. And for me now, I allow myself the opportunity to really feel those feelings. I don't try and run away from it. I don't try and distract myself. I don't try to numb it out with some kind of substance or behavior, device, anything like that. And really, I feel that's the best way of dealing with these things, as quickly and as efficiently and as in a healthier way as possible. Because what happens when we don't do that is that we're kind of kicking the can down the road for a later date, and I get it if it's just too painful to deal with at this moment. There's sometimes that has to happen in some way, shape or form if it's really just unbearable. But when we start practicing doing this, it does get easier. It is a skill that you can learn and potentially master, is feeling our feelings. And I guess that's what addiction is the opposite of, right? Is changing the way we feel, not being able to deal with real life. And the good thing about feelings is that that a feeling never killed anyone. A thought maybe inspired someone to take their own life, but a feeling, if you just feel it is just that. It passes, as do thoughts, unless we attach to them and we identify with them, and then they can take us on all kinds of roads and of exploration, some good, some bad. So yeah, that's the first thing I'd say, is to encourage us to sit with it, just to be with it, and just to get comfortable feeling feelings. Some are positive, some are not so positive, but all are valid. All are giving us some kind of information, right? That's and grief, the information is really with grief is that it's an expression of love, isn't it? If I didn't love this person, I wouldn't be experiencing grief. So really it's the personification of love, and that's worth remembering, I think, as well in these times when we're dealing with death, is that our grief is equal to the amount of love we have. So therefore, it is an expression of that love, and hopefully that knowledge can allow us to be more comfortable feeling that particular emotion. So yeah, it's really obviously it's a part of life, and I don't say that to devalue anyone's experience of it, but if we can't deal with such a fundamental part of life, then obviously that's an issue, isn't it? That's a problem. We can't deal with reality, and the reality is we're all going to die. And so another way I like to look at that is that it is sacred. It is a sacred part of life. It is inescapable. It's inescapable for me to get out of here without shedding this body, right? And we all have different spiritual perspectives and ways of looking at this, but for me it's not the end, it's just the transition. And I've listened to a lot of near-death experiences, and I've done a lot of meditation as well, which also helps with this. But they're both entirely compatible. When we listen to these NDEs or near-death experiences, they are talking about exactly what the yogis and the rishis of India and the Buddhists as well talk about, in terms of there's a part of us that is inextinguishable. It's beyond life and death, and when we listen to the NDEs, they kind of confirm that. People leave their bodies for long periods of time. They're dead. They are clinically dead. Yet they are far from it. Their consciousness is still very much alive, and they are having experiences that are very similar to other NDEs. And so for me, that's really interesting, because we can learn a lot from that. We can learn a lot when people talk about going through the tunnel, when people talk about meeting their guides, when people talk about being in a place that is just a full expression of love. And these are not uncommon. This is, there are, you can look on YouTube and you can find hundreds of NDEs, and most of them will talk about the same kinds of things, and those things are often just a feeling of oneness with all that is. It's like they're going home. They don't want to come back to the body, but obviously to tell the NDEs, all of them had to come back into the body, and that was a really difficult process, because they wanted to stay where they were. And if it was just the odd one, it would be easy to be skeptical. But when it's hundreds of people saying exactly the same thing, and they've all gone and they've all been clinically dead and they've come back, then it's okay, there's a pattern here. It's interesting. For me, it's interesting. And of course, everyone is entitled to their own opinions on this, but it's my experience in meditation that there is a part of us that is not the body, that is not the mind, that is not the emotions. There is a part of us that is aware of all those things, and for me that awareness is beyond time and space, and it's indestructible, and that means that there's a part of me that goes on when this body drops, and so for me, that gives me great comfort because I have less fear of death. Death is not the end, it's a transition. And actually, if you listen to the NDEs and you listen to the yogis and the saints, it's actually a transition to a better place. And, more will be revealed with that. And maybe that's not going to be the case for everyone, I don't know. But that certainly seems to be the experience of a lot of near-death experiences. So that's something that gives me comfort anyway. And I think another thing that's important is acceptance. Really, that's if it's particularly when we're dealing with people with terminal illnesses, people that are very close to us. I really encourage people to get comfortable with that reality, to accept the reality is they might have a week left to live, or we don't know, but they don't have long left to live. That's the reality. Their body is giving up, their organs are failing, whatever. And I think that's the gateway to being able to deal with this in a healthy way. Because actually, we don't want to be around a person who has a week or two left on planet Earth in this incarnation, and make it all about us and how difficult it is for us to deal with this and our grief. We want to be in a place where we're okay with what's happening. We're okay with reality. We can accept it, and that frees up the person who is dying to also be okay with what is happening, to accept where they're at, to be present, and I think that gives people the best possible chance of a beautiful transition, and I think it's a symptom or a failure perhaps of particularly Western society, where we just try to keep everyone alive, to the very end, and they're in hospitals and the lights are blaring and we've got the machines beeping, and here we have this incredibly sacred part of life. Someone is going to leave their body and they're going to go to the next stage, whatever that may be, whatever you may believe that may be. But it's inescapably sacred, isn't it? It's what our ancestors have been doing for millions of years. And to turn that into some sort of clinical, technical exercise where we don't, it's almost like a total exercise in non-acceptance, isn't it? When you try everything to keep everyone alive for as long as possible, when actually, a lot of people might just want to die at home with their family and in a peaceful way, without all of that traumatic side of modern life. But of course, there's a time and a place, and there are traumas, etc. And of course, it's valid to try to keep people alive, and doctors succeed in that and bring people back all the time, and they have longer lives. But sometimes, particularly with elderly people, it's for speaking from personal experience, I don't think I would want that on my deathbed. I think I'd be much happier to be in a place of peace, be surrounded by people that I love, and be able to just accept what's happening without lots of people around me trying to stop that from happening. So I guess it's different for everyone, and but that's my personal opinion. So yeah, it's it can be a beautiful part of life. It can be framed as that. It can be framed as this window into eternity. This way of realizing how precious life is. If everyone stayed alive forever, we wouldn't value it. We wouldn't appreciate it. There wouldn't be so much creativity and expression. People would get boring and repetitive and stuck in their habits. But That's not how it is. It's a continuous process of rebirth and death and rebirth and death, and that is what makes life so magnificent. It's what makes life so interesting, so beautiful. And you know, I really try to encourage people to find some acceptance for the reality of that, and the imminence of it for all of us. So yeah, I think I'll leave it there. I just wanted to say a few words on it because it's something that's obviously coming up for me, and it's something I'm seeing in my clients as well. And you know, there's a real opportunity to turn it into something beautiful, to turn it into something sacred if we don't resist it, if we don't push it away, if we don't numb it. It's an incredible part of life. And yeah, thanks for listening. I'll see you next time.